Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is a movie about an old man who's worn down, grumpy, and a complete shell of who he once was, who's brought back into action well beyond his current capabilities, all because of a younger, smarter know-it-all who refuses to be likeable for even 5 seconds, which leads him to fight off Nazis and go on another big adventure, all in an attempt to keep this so-called time travel device from getting in the wrong hands. This movie should have never been made. Simple as. Was it because the 4th movie sucked and they wanted to redeem the franchise for one last outing and go out on a high? Or would they have inevitably made this movie anyway when they realised that their once prominent imagination that they were so well known for had gone on a vacation to fuck you land, only to never return? And now they're stuck making sequels and remakes to well-known and beloved IPs purely because they can't come up with a single original idea. Who knows? But this movie exists now, and so here we are. And having seen it, I can easily say that this is just one of the worst movies, if not the worst movie that has come out this year. Now, as the casual moviegoer who's looking for a somewhat fun time, you might be able to see the joy and humour in a movie like this, and have a relatively okay cinema experience. But for someone who's a huge fan of the original 3 movies, and who genuinely deems Indiana Jones as one of his favourite characters of all time, this movie was just sad to witness. This movie did nothing but damage me. It's long, boring, and irritating to watch, full of unappealing action, uninteresting characters, a main protagonist who's just turned into a laughingstock, and CGI which only does the job because The Flash pretty much just set an all-time low. It's a prime example of the aging but previously cool character treatment that they've been handing out for so long now, and it brings me on to Indy himself. Because in the first 3 movies, because they never made a 4th movie, he was charming, charismatic, funny, enthusiastic, and capable of, great feats mentally and physically. He was a brilliant character to watch on screen, and Harrison Ford really made the role his own. In this movie, however, the guy's nearly 80 years old, and like every other aging male character in literally everything that Disney has made in the last 5 years, he's nothing like he once was, neither intrigued nor very interested in going on another adventure. And it shows. Harrison Ford does his best in the role, but the script just never allows him to bring back the Indy that we know and love. And if you're going to bring a man who's well into his lifetime back into a movie like this, you could at least do your best to make him a solid complement and counterpart to Helena, like his father was to him in The Last Crusade. But he just seems sad and downbeat for most of the time, only doing car chases and everything else because he's kind of obliged to, and not because he gets a thrill from being in these kinds of, dangerous and exhilarating scenarios. It's just hard to convince yourself that an 80-year-old Indy could actually do any of this, but maybe he could if the writers, treated him better. But because they don't, it all just feels so over the top, while the original movies felt, in some sense like what you're watching was actually quite grounded and did keep you on the edge of your seat, excited to see what our protagonist would do next. But this action just never lets you feel like the characters are in much danger, or because you're not really convinced in the first place, and mind you, it's not made any better when you have a character on screen who just refuses to be likeable for even 5 seconds. The only parts that had me remotely interested were either the first 15 minutes, and spoiler alert if you somehow care at this point, but also the part where they went into the time portal. But when you discover the reason that the dial exists, and that we won't be going into the time period that, our villain wanted to, which could have actually made for something relatively interesting to watch on the screen, you're just left feeling like this whole thing was kind of pointless. And speaking of annoying characters, this brings us on to Helena. She may just be the epitome of that know-it-all you're supposed to like, but who actually comes off as just a complete asshole who only ever belittles Indy, then switches to caring about him when he's in danger, then the instant they're somewhat safe, just belittles him even more. Now, to be honest, for the first 2 minutes or so when she's on screen and talking to Indy, she seems like someone who just likes the idea of adventure and wants to visit her godfather again. It's kind of wholesome to see a character who's taken after not just her dad, but the man who was also good friends with him. But then the rest of the movie happens, and you realise that everything that I just said then was complete and utter bullshit. She basically just makes fun of every aspect that associates Indy with herself, acts like a know-it-all in every situation, passes off Indy whenever he's going through a genuinely hard time like it's nothing, and then just switches up the moment that there's actually a threat to his life. I can't tell what the fuck the writers were going for here, but if Kathleen Kennedy's words are anything to go by, we're clearly meant to root for her in some capacity, but I was honestly just waiting for the 5 minutes where she'd shut up. That never came. This movie couldn't really provide the love interest treatment this time around because of, Indy's old age, but it's something that made the original so special. There was always a conflict with him and a female character who joined him on the journey, and we explored characters who were very capable themselves, weren't so capable, and those who betrayed him. but at the end of the day, they were all likeable in their own ways and fun to watch on the screen. But Helena, being the female character this time around, is just fucking annoying. And when she's the one doing more of the rescuing and action than Indy himself, purely because she kinda has to, it just makes our main protagonist seem useless and like a side character in his own movie, which again, is a reason that this movie just shouldn't exist. But if there's one positive I can comment on, it's the performances that were actually all pretty well done, given the crap that came out of the Disney writers' room here, particularly in Mads Mikkelsen and his team of enemies. But ultimately, this film is not an Indiana Jones movie, and it never will be. It only ruins the character more, and is another pointless addition to Disney's portfolio of content created using big IPs that they originally had nothing to do with, all in an attempt to make some decent money. But if the stats say anything, this will be just another nail in the coffin for Disney and Lucasfilm, bringing us closer to the time where the evil behind all of this is finally let go. And we can actually get some good original stories for once, with actual strong and capable leading men who aren't belittled and made fun of by some female counterpart, all to push some kind of stupid message which never worked in the first place and never will. But you know, Disney keeps making these kinds of failures because going bankrupt is the only thing at this point which will actually lead you to make some change. And I don't know about you, but it would be a joy to finally see them crumble to the ground and never release any of this repeated trope trash ever again. Anyway, thank you for watching the video. Like, subscribe, all that jazz. Won't force you though, of course. And I will see you in the next one very, very soon. Bye.